Part 118. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1180. Latest website. Lu Feng knew what was happening in the world at this moment, but he was too weak to participate in the conversation about these things. Compared with his previous life, Lu Feng now has a newer understanding of the world. If in his previous life Lu Feng thought that he could do whatever he wanted with money, then now Lu Feng deeply understands that money is really fragile. This world is not built with money. What rises is national strength. In his last life, he also hesitated and made a choice between a big country with small people and a small country with big people. The calls from London came one after another, and the senior management communicated fiercely through various channels. They didn't care about GFN Group, they cared about influence. As the sky turns white, this night is destined to be a sleepless night for many people. Quantum Fund and Tiger Fund have sold out all the futures contracts in their hands. Yesterday, they borrowed new contracts through several banks and opened short order, short as soon as the market opens today. This futures transaction made Soros and Robertson each earn more than $1 billion. As the market opened, tungsten ore prices began to rise, but not as intensely as yesterday. On Wall Street, Soros arrived at the company early and held a morning meeting to confirm that the loan futures contracts had arrived. Everyone was extremely ambitious. This opportunity was too rare for them. Now this matter has spread throughout Wall Street. Now, many financial companies are eager to give it a try. Half an hour after the market opened, Soros and Robertson began to attack Schroeder. A large number of contracts were thrown out. The buyer's market was very tight. In half an hour, hundreds of millions of transactions were made. As the market closed in the morning, Soros and Robertson smashed out all their 2 cents of chips, but the price did not move even half a cent. This surprised them. Where did Schroeder get the confidence to protect the market like this? Half an hour after the market close, the London Futures Exchange suddenly announced that in view of the large fluctuations in tungsten ore futures, in order to be more fair and protect the interests of participating companies, futures trading is based on the concept of stable sales and balanced prices, so the May tungsten futures or delivery must be delivered by trading companies that meet the specifications, and requirements are imposed on product labels. As soon as this news came out, the situation exploded. Products were delivered strictly in accordance with the labels of the Futures Exchange, which meant that several companies in the United States could not borrow products from the U.S. Treasury to deliver products. At that time, there would be no other way except facing a breach of contract. On Wall Street, Soros was a little confused when he saw the news faxed in his hand. He asked his manager over and over again if it was true. The other person replied that the news was from half an hour ago. This is a British sanction against us. This has never happened before. What should I do now? Everyone was a little panicked. It was obvious that this was aimed at them. They opened short orders in the hope of buying them back after the price fell. If the price did not fall before delivery, then they would face the loss of the futures contract they had borrowed before. Breach of contract. At Schroeder's group, John looked at the situation in front of him with a smile on his face. The market opened in less than 10 minutes in the afternoon. A large number of people gathered in front of the computers in the office. John ordered the traders, after the market opens, the first time will bring prices up, and they can either buy high-priced contracts or wait for default. Everyone at the scene had smiles on their faces. It was obvious that both Robertson and Soros had fallen into the trap. As the market opened, the price shot up in a straight line. Accompanied by the exclamations of retail investors in the exchange, it easily exceeded $80,000, and then went straight to the $90,000 mark. This number would never be believed in the eyes of ordinary people. At this moment, it was like being penetrated by paper. On Wall Street, Soros and Robertson both covered their faces with their hands when they saw this situation. They both looked particularly annoyed. The manager next to them had frowned. The situation was worse than they imagined. The price has stabilized, shall we buy it back? Cyrus took a deep breath. He could not accept this fact. He sold it for 70,000 yuan in the morning and bought it back for more than 90,000 yuan in the afternoon. But the price is still rising, otherwise the position cannot be closed. But there is another way, and that is to let those companies in South Africa resume production. As long as they are in production, no one will have any reason to buy tungsten ore at such a high price. If you don't want to buy it, contact those companies and contact the National Department at the same time, Cyrus said solemnly. The price of tungsten ore futures stabilized at 100,000 at the close. The two sides started talking on the phone again. Compared to how busy they were, Lu Feng became quiet. Apart from answering a few phone calls, he seemed very helpless. He walked around Cape Town and contacted the local court. Everything was just all that's left to do is wait. On May 10, there were still more than 10 days left before futures delivery. Lu Feng received a call from John, asking him to go back first. There was no use staying there. Before leaving, Lu Feng went to see the ambassador. He also said that Lu Feng should go back first and bring back some people. The situation here is relatively chaotic, but the overall situation is currently stable and there should be no major problems. On May 11, Lu Feng took off with person number 20 to return to China. When the plane landed in Shenzhen, Lu Feng was the last one to get off the plane. Instead of going to the company, he went home first. Lu Feng's second aunt was called to clean the house and take Duo to and from school. Lu Feng is back. The second aunt looked overjoyed when she saw Lu Feng, and said excitedly, "I haven't seen you for many years, but now you are getting more and more handsome." "When did you come?" Lu Feng said politely. After a few words of greeting, Lu Feng went upstairs and returned to the house. Compared with the immediate success before, this time he really felt powerless and did nothing. If it hadn't been for Schroeder, there would have been no room for turning around. At 8 o'clock in the evening, Lu Feng received a call from Cyrus. Compared with the last time, Cyrus was obviously less arrogant now. "Mr. Lu, don't make things too complicated. You can't only deal with Europe your whole life, right? Even European financial companies communicate with Wall Street. Let me tell you this, if European financial companies, if the company no longer needs you, then you will be abandoned by the whole world," Cyrus advised earnestly. "You should think about your future." "What kind of considerations?" "Resume production now." Lu Feng couldn't help laughing and said, "Then I will be attacked by Europe and you now." "Of course, if Wall Street can show enough sincerity, I think it can talk about it." Lu Feng could tell that they were really anxious this time, but if they just gave some verbal promises, then Lu Feng would not be able to give them a satisfactory answer. "Of course you can. I also think this is what it should be. We can unite several companies on Wall Street to cooperate with GFN. You don't have to worry about Schroeder Group withdrawing its capital. We will invest and lift the blockade on GFN," Suo said. Ross promised. "It may not be possible to invest in shares. There are currently very few shares. If I sell them again, I will be out of the game." "Can the shares be diluted?" "I'm sorry. The equity transfer letters I signed with all investors promise not to dilute the equity within 5 years. This is also to protect everyone's interests. You can also buy shares if you want. I can transfer another 3% to 5%. Equity, plus the conditions you mentioned." Later, after Lu Feng finished speaking, he pondered for a moment and said, "But there is a prerequisite, that is, a contract must be signed first." "Mr. Lu, don't you believe me? The process of signing a contract is very long. You also know that the delivery of tungsten ore futures is this month. It's not that I don't believe you, it's that I don't believe the Americans. Or there's another way. Let's sign a separate agreement. The content is the things you promised. If you can't do it within 12 months, the liquidated damages will be just okay, Lu Feng suggested again. The person on the other end of the phone was a little speechless when he heard this. When did a blank check become so useless? When he heard that Lu Feng didn't agree with this, Saras changed his explanation. Mr. Lu, you should know who is the most profitable to do business with in this world. In fact, there is no need for you to do what you are doing now. Let me tell you this, even in Europe, the United States is the leader in the end. You can't just looking at commercial confrontations and other important areas. I believe that a qualified entrepreneur should have such strategic thinking. I'm sorry, I don't have it. Lu Feng didn't want to talk to him anymore and asked, is there anything else? It's already very late here. If there's nothing else, I'll go first, bye. After Lu Feng finished speaking, he hung up the phone without waiting for him to speak. Zhang Xiaoyan had come back and was preparing to eat downstairs. Duo ran up and asked Lu Feng to eat together. After going downstairs, Zhang Xiaoyan asked casually, is the matter resolved? It can't be considered a solution. Lu Feng sat down and said, this matter is no longer something I can interfere with. Zhang Xiaoyan was stunned. In her heart, she always felt that there was nothing that Lu Feng couldn't solve. She raised her head and glanced at him. She originally wanted to ask a question, but the words turned into, let's eat. I plan to deploy in Xiangjiang. I must prepare in advance to put the industry in the mainland and the corporate headquarters in Xiangjiang. I will face more financing channels and face the world, Lu Feng said while eating his meal. It's like when I came to Shenzhen from Suzhou. I'll take a look there this year and see if I can buy a house or something. I won't pass, Zhang Xiaoyan said expressionlessly. Duo won't pass either. He will take the high school entrance examination next year, and Huasha is developing well. Xiangjiang is very good. Isn't this a step-by-step approach? We are starting from a small city in the north, step by step. I could go with you before, but now I can't. If you want to go, you can go. If you want to see as much as you want, just come back once a year, Zhang Xiaoyan said with a rather indifferent expression. Duo didn't notice Zhang Xiaoyan's displeasure and shouted happily, I want to go to Xiangjiang. I want to move there. Why are you arguing over a meal? You want to go with him so much. Don't come back if you go, Zhang Xiaoyan scolded. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1181. Latest website. When the second aunt saw this, she persuaded her, it's good here. If you go to another place and you're not familiar with the place, it's not as practical as here. Lu Feng didn't say anything, just hunched over his meal. If he wanted to go far in the future, he had to go to Xiangjiang. There was more capital there. Put the industry in the mainland, where there was cheaper labor and a bigger market. After dinner, Lu Feng received a call from Wei Yandan. On the phone, Wei Yandan said that the complete industrial line of lithography machines had departed from Bangkok and entered Zhishuangbana through customs half an hour ago. Due to road problems, they decided to transfer from Kunming Airport and the cargo plane landed directly at Tianjin Airport. After Lu Feng approved it, he asked about the progress. It is expected that the factory can be reached within 3 days. The installation and debugging of the machine will take more than a month. Now everyone in Tianjin's third factory is preparing. The R/U0026D company has also sent an engineering team to be responsible for photolithography, machine debugging, pre-production, etc. Make sure the machine is safe, tell them it won't happen and don't let them use it. After the machine is installed, put it into production as soon as possible. Let Zhu Lidong contact several domestic companies that produce crystalline silicon, photoresist and other related companies, and strive to make it before July. Produce communication chips, Lu Feng ordered. After hanging up the phone, Lu Feng breathed a sigh of relief. At least now the problem of chip production has been solved. As long as communication chips can be produced, mobile phones will become cheaper in advance and everything will be ahead of schedule. As for subsequent chip research and development and other issues, Lu Feng still feels that it is difficult to go far with domestic engineers alone, and in the end, cooperation is the way to go. However, all this will take time. After the international situation improves, Lu Feng predicts that the country will need to join the WTO before taking this step. At night, in the bedroom, Zhang Xiaoyan washed up and walked in. She lifted the quilt and lay on the bed. She said to Lu Feng, "You turn on the night light over there. I'm going to sleep. I have something to do tomorrow." Lu Feng put down the newspaper in his hand, leaned on the backrest, and said, "I still want to talk to you. You can definitely move Wash's headquarters to Xiangjiang. It will be more convenient for financing and listing there." I said, "I won't go public," Zhang Xiaoyan said impatiently. "I won't go." "Then if you don't go, I'll be there alone." "Then I'm alone over there." "Why are you clinging to me?" Zhang Xiaoyan suddenly sat up and stared at Lu Feng with red eyes, full of grievance. "Who are you looking for?" "You and me, an old woman who doesn't lay eggs. What are we doing together? Sooner or later they will all be separated, you go your way and I will go mine." Who said you are an old hen that can't lay eggs? You can't let me know if you have feelings." Lu Feng also lost his temper. "Who said that?" "Your mother, when she found out that her precious son was still involved with me, an old hen, she called her and scolded me. I shouldn't have let your second aunt come over. It would be great to find a nanny." Zhang Xiaoyan spit out all the bitterness she had been holding in her stomach for the past few days. Lu Feng sat on the bed and didn't know what to say. For a while, the two of them were silent. After a long while, Zhang Xiaoyan wiped her tears with her hands, lay down and turned her back to Lu Feng and said, "You want to develop and go to Xiangjiang. I understand. We just take advantage of this opportunity to live our own lives. What do we do? Let's live together. This is not a thing. Our past 2 years. In the past 2 years, we have been together less and separated more. If you count on your fingers, how many months will it take to stay together for 2 years? Zhang Xiaoyan took a deep breath and said, "They say it is better to forget each other than to stay together. We used to be close to each other, but now you have your own river and sea, and I have my own lake. What a wonderful ending. That's not the case. We should be together. I promised you. Besides, I gave up going back for you. How could you? What did you promise? Where are you going back?" Zhang Xiaoyan looked at Lu Feng and asked, "You didn't promise me anything, you only promised me not to hit me." Lu Feng was speechless for a moment, not knowing what to say. It felt like I was trying my best for someone, but the other person didn't appreciate it at all. If it weren't for her, I might have a chance to go back. It's true that I am rich now, but the infrastructure now is worse than it was more than 20 years ago. Not even close. Lu Feng was a little disappointed. He sat there with his head lowered. He felt as if he had been let down. Without the support of his original beliefs, Lu Feng felt that he had already been lost in this era. It was like coming to a strange place. Zhang Xiaoyan was the only person he was close to. If he were to separate now, he would be facing this strange yet familiar world alone. "What's wrong with you?" Zhang Xiaoyan noticed that something was wrong with him, so she made peace with him and said, "I don't owe you anything, and you don't need to tie me to your side to sleep." Lu Feng couldn't sleep that night. He missed his home, not Lu Feng's home, but his parents. He may be the only person in the world who can't find the meaning of his existence in the era, because he was originally does not exist. He is an orphan of his time. After a sleepless night, Zhang Xiaoyan went to work and Duo went to school the next morning. Lu Feng sat there alone. For the first time, he came up with the idea of finding himself. In other words, when Zhang Xiaoyan could not be his spiritual harbor, he needed to find another one. Home. Hey, Mr. Wei, please help me ask my channel dealer to find a home. Lu Feng told her the home of his parents in his previous life and asked her to help find it. Jia Feng had a local supplier, so he called them at noon. No, Lu Feng said in disbelief. There is that unit, there is that floor, and there is that room number, but the people living in it don't match what you said. Wei Yandan explained the situation again, and did not dare to ask Lu Feng what he was doing with this family. The birth dates of the host and hostess inside are all clear. Okay, I understand. Lu Feng put down the phone after saying that. He sat slumped on the sofa. The bright sun outside the window was emitting dazzling sunlight, and the heat in the air seemed to have sucked away all his strength. No longer exists. Everything is gone. Lu Feng's soul was like a rootless weed in this era. For a moment, he felt that the world was so strange and lonely, as if he were a new arrival in a strange city, wandering on the overpass, watching the people coming and going, and the endless traffic. Everyone has a place to come and a place to return to. Only his own eyes were barren. 3 days later, as the plane landed, the prepared truck loaded the lithography machine assembly line, and police cars cleared the way and took it directly to Jia Feng's third factory. A simple welcome ceremony was held on site, and the unloading of the truck began randomly. On the London Futures Exchange, the price of tungsten ore has stabilized at 100,000, which is unshakable. With the request for goods, 3 American tungsten mining companies increased their margins. The 3 companies began to communicate with American senior officials overnight. At the same time, Quantum Also Fund and Tiger Management Fund. This is a futures transaction that cannot be closed or delivered, but Schroders insists on this and makes them continue to pay liquidated damages. South Africa has maintained a balance with the intervention of both parties. To put it simply, if it is not resolved, it will be beneficial to the Schroeder Group to delay it for a day. There was less than a week left before the delivery. In the end, the United States could no longer bear it, and the 2 parties communicated by phone. In the conference room of the Schroeder Group headquarters, John sat next to the CEO with a smile on his face. This futures transaction can be said to have both face and dignity. Several people at the scene expressed their opinions. When it was John's turn, he put down the pen in his hand and said confidently, if they don't want to pay liquidated damages and want to close their positions, they can also sell Jia Feng. Sell it to them, and now I can confirm that Jia Feng's value is not that great. We have promised an investment of us $3.5 billion, and currently us $2.5 billion has been invested. As long as they are willing to spend us $4 billion to take over, then the futures issue will be considered a thing of the past. If we sell Jia Feng now, will we suffer losses in the chip field? No, with the signing of the Wassenaar agreement, Jia Feng has no development in the chip field, and the development of the mainland market has basically come to an end. Coupled with the unfavorable development of overseas markets, the valuation of tens of billions of dollars is indeed too unreal. In the United States, they still think it is a threat to high-end manufacturing, so it is better to sell it in advance, John explained. Everyone at the scene looked at me and I looked at you, secretly thinking, this is obviously your investment mistake, and now you are trying to make up for it. Then will the other party buy it? The value of Jia Feng is still there. In addition, it has really been in the limelight during this period. Some financial media and financial people in the industry under our group have been bragging. The problem should not be big. They will not be able to compensate this time. For less money, it would be a better choice to buy a Jia Feng back home, John said confidently. Indeed, compared to losing money directly, buying something back seems to be more worthwhile. Will Jia Feng sell it? Said a vice president next to him. When signing the agreement, there should be relevant restrictions, right? I have already arranged this matter, John said confidently. I will definitely pass the vote of the board of directors. That's good, you will be responsible for this matter. The CEO finished his instructions and said, the meeting is dismissed. Latest website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1182. Latest website. At the Jiafeng Group headquarters, Lu Feng held a meeting with Zhu Lidong and Du Guoying to learn about the mobile phone market situation. With the launch of Jiexun mobile phones, Big Brother was almost eliminated, and the remaining mobile phone manufacturers were also step by step back. In the past few months, Zhu Lidong has successfully negotiated with several economically powerful provinces such as Guangzhou, Zhejiang, Liaoning, and Shandong. Currently, the mobile phone market coverage basically covers 80% of the domestic consumer market. Monthly sales have stabilized at 5,000 mobile phones, and this sales volume now covers more than 50% of the domestic market. In the market, Jiexun mobile phones are also called small 3 phones. The R/U0026D company simply started in this direction and divided the products into business machine configurations and mobile phones for women. Call the senior executives here in a moment, and while they are all here, we can have a brief meeting and talk about something, Lu Feng ordered Zhu Lidong. What about the electrical appliance city? Zhu Lidong asked. If we don't want to expand, just a few stores will do. Lu Feng still has the energy to build an electronics mall. An hour later, several people gathered in the headquarters conference room. Lu Feng sat there smoking a cigarette. The atmosphere was very relaxed. Compared with the previous serious meetings of the company, these people were simply unruly. Wei Yandan was the last one to arrive, pulled out a chair and sat down, and first talked about the construction status of the headquarters building. It is expected to be moved by the end of August. The entire building has 20 floors and the interior decoration is definitely first class in the country. Let's not talk about this for now. Lu Feng put the cigarette butt in the ashtray, looked at everyone and said, I called everyone here today just to chat. We are the oldest in Jiafeng, Liukan, Zhu Lidong. All companies came as soon as they registered. Zhu Lidong laughed when he heard this and said, when I came here, you took me to plan the industrial park in Suzhou. Later I learned that that land had nothing to do with you at that time. People at the scene laughed and talked about how they came to Jiafeng. After talking enthusiastically, they suddenly fell into silence again. These people gathered from all over the world, and unknowingly more than 5 years had passed. Now Jiafeng has reached a crossroads again. Everyone knows that Gudli is throwing a party and wooing the management. It is estimated that the other party will not be able to tolerate me by the end of this year, so I want to hear everyone's thoughts, Lu Feng said to everyone. I will go wherever Mr. Lu goes. Zhu Lidong was the first to express his stance. I am here today only because of Mr. Lu's promotion. I believe that my future will be brighter with you. Everyone expressed their intention to follow Lu Feng. Lu Feng nodded and said, my idea is to go to Xiangjiang. Xiangjiang is about to return. As the financial gathering place in Asia, there is a richer financial market there. Going back is the mainland market, going outside is global finance. I registered a company there in the early years, and it is now open. Since everyone is willing to follow me, go and get a job there first, and you can also slowly start buying a house there. Lu Feng knew that the housing prices in Xiangjiang are not expensive now, so he suggested to everyone, if you have the ability, just buy a bigger villa, you can't lose money on the house, and you can borrow it from me when you run out of money. When Zhu Lidong heard that he could borrow money, he seemed particularly touched. What kind of relationship could make Mr. Lu say borrowing money? He thought it was the first time he heard this from Lu Feng in these years. Mr. Lu, The R/U0026D company needs to sort it out, register various patent rights, and hurry up on recent chip production. Lu Feng thought of the chip and continued, after the chip is produced, it needs to be wholesale sold. In this regard, don't act like a big company, have the spirit of a small workshop, and anyone can come. It is expected that the first batch of communication chips will be rolled out in August this year, but such wholesale will have an impact on our mobile phone market, Liukin said. Don't worry about the impact first, let's build the market first. When the market rises, it will force the country to invest in this area and pay attention to this area. Only when the market is big can there be opportunities and a future, Lu Feng said to the crowd. No matter what happens in the future, when making investments or doing business, you must have a big picture and a pioneering spirit, and never think that you can conquer the entire market. Competition can stimulate the potential of products, and only by realizing the potential of products can we have a larger market. Everyone nodded, and Lu Feng turned the topic elsewhere. He talked a lot about overseas markets, the R/U0026D market, the inflation situation in the mainland, and the internal affairs of the company. The problem is those problems. Even though Lu Feng has given repeated orders, nepotism, corruption problems, and slow administrative efficiency still continue to emerge endlessly. This is a disease of big companies that no one can cure. After leaving the conference room, Lu Feng passed by the finance office area on his way to the restaurant. He suddenly remembered his investment in futures. He entered the finance director's office and ordered, after the futures open tonight, take the futures I hold, throw it all away. By the way, how much has it gone up? 20 times. So much. Lu Feng was a little surprised and said, doesn't that mean I've already made a profit of 1 billion? The other party nodded, also looking shocked. Lu Feng closed the door and secretly thought to himself, it would be easier to make money by engaging in finance. In just a short time, he had earned $1 billion. It can be seen from this that Cyrus and John have really staked their business and their lives. No wonder South Africa is in such chaos. When ordinary people see the riots in these countries on the news, they may only sigh and say that those places are really barbaric places. They would never dream that big countries and finance are involved behind these things. As the futures market opened, $1 billion of futures contracts were thrown out, and the market came under pressure instantly. John felt baffled when he received the message from the manager. When he heard that it might be Lu Feng's account that was selling out, he immediately ordered to go ahead. Don't buy, let the price drop. If Cyrus and Robertson try to grab chips, just buy the goods. John feels that the probability of these two selling to grab chips is extremely low. The two parties are already communicating. What's more, the current price is already sky high. Even if they buy it back to close the position, they will still suffer a huge loss, unless the United States does not intend to trade with them. Futures originally worth 1 billion were ultimately sold for only over 800 million. On May 25, the delivery day of tungsten ore futures, the exchange announced that it would mediate this matter. 3 tungsten ore processing companies increased their margins by $3 billion and compensated retail investors for liquidated damages before closing their positions. Schroeder, who held the largest position, the German group, will negotiate with the 3 companies to find a solution to this matter. Early the next morning, Lu Feng looked at the Financial Times report on this matter, and his heart skipped a beat. After reading it carefully, he had a bad feeling in his heart. Duo isn't going to school today? Haven't you gotten up yet? Lu Feng asked Zhang Xiaoyan. Today is Saturday. Zhang Xiaoyan was sitting on the sofa in a daze. She looked at her second aunt and said, I am free in the morning. I will take you out to buy some clothes and go shopping by the way. I'm already so old, so I don't need to buy it. The second aunt shied away. Just go with her. It's a good time to visit Shenzhen. It's been a long time since you came here, Lu Feng advised. Zhang Xiaoyan changed her clothes and woke up duo. The three of them drove out to go shopping. Lu Feng sat there and watched the clock on the wall ticking. He took out his cell phone and hesitated for a moment before calling Su Yurong. In the past, after the call was connected, Su Yurong immediately shared what he saw. "Guess where the third young master of the Feng family is?" Su Yurong asked with interest. "Where? Do you remember the Fulin Hotel where we dined last time?" "Remember, where is he?" Lu Feng was a little in disbelief. "Walk the plate over there." This matter has gone viral in the wealthy circles, but there is no news at all in the media. This young Master Feng has suffered a lot recently. He goes to work during the day and goes to the Sun Hung Kai headquarters at night to cause trouble, Su Yurong said with a smile. Business at Fulin restaurant has been a lot better recently. Many people ask him to serve food and then give tips. Lu Feng was stunned for a while before he came to his senses and smiled and said, his two brothers have gone too far. With such a big family fortune, he is not an idle person. Forget it, let's not talk about him anymore. I'll give it to you, there's something wrong with the phone call. What's the matter? Su Yurong thought for a moment and said, it's not the end of the year yet, so you don't need to ask me for anything. It's not a matter of the board of directors. I want to buy an apartment in Xiangjiang and find a place to stay first. Maybe I will have to join you next year, Lu Feng said in a joking tone. You've come to join me, why can't you buy a house? Live here? No, I'm easy to say. Mainly because I have children. Are you familiar with it? Do you have any suitable villa recommendations? By the way, help me find out about the office building. I might need it next year. Also, the equity of Hurricane Capital is also, think about it, you recently stepped back and changed the equity control of United Capital from the company to yourself, Lu Feng said. Why are you asking me to leave? We'll talk about the equity later. There are some good pieces of land recently, but they are owned by Li Shaoqi. Do you know there is a repulse bay here? The villas over there are quite expensive. Let me help you ask. I wonder if there is a house available. The cheapest one can cost tens of millions of dollars, and your identity needs to be verified, Su Yurong said into the phone. A person with no status like me can't even think about it. You don't have status yet? Then this is the Repulse Bay Villa. If anyone is suitable, you can sign it for me. It's already June. I'll finish the mid-year report first and then go there. Then you come here with some money first. Looking at the house here requires capital verification and so on, which is quite troublesome. Let's pay $5 million first. I happen to have a dinner party these 2 days, and I should be able to meet Li Shaoqi. Lu Feng knew that her status did not require any capital verification at all, and this woman could not trust her to do things and talk about money at every turn. However, since he wanted to develop in Xiangjiang, he could not do without her from the beginning, so he readily agreed. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1183. Latest website. The losses of Wall Street, Quantum Fund, and Tiger Fund made them very sad. Many investment banks were involved in this matter. Now the handling of this matter makes them very passive in facing Europe. Executives do not want to show a low profile to Europe and hope Wall Street will solve the problem on its own. In the high-level conference room, the famous Wall Street bosses were among them. A man in his 50s sat at the main seat. The discussion on this matter was particularly intense. I still think we should talk to you. This matter has been illegal from the beginning. They are suspected of insider trading. This is control of resources. The UK has an unshirkable historical responsibility for South Africa, and now it is extending its hands to Africa. We will never allow it. The problem should be analyzed from this perspective. No, now we should find their weak spot. This is obviously a trap set by them. South Africa is their weak spot. We should continue to put pressure on them. The scene was chaotic. The man sitting in the main seat looked at the crowd and said, "I hope everyone has a broader perspective. We should focus on appeasing Europe rather than retaliate hard. I suggest that the easiest breakthrough in this matter is the GFN Group. This company is not a big one. As long as we show a little goodwill, I believe the matter will be resolved soon," one person said. Saras pondered for a moment and said, "I agree with this idea. Starting from GFN Group, we can restore the tungsten mine to production, and we can relax a little more about the encirclement and suppression of this company." Many people at the scene agreed to relax restrictions on GFN, and some even proposed returning the previously seized photolithography machines to seek relief from GFN's tungsten ore futures. The leader of the man looked very ugly. Looking at these people, they could sell anything as long as they lost money. He shouted in a deep voice, "Do you know what this means? Relaxing the restrictions on GFN? Do you know that in this area? Is something happening in the sea? What signal does this represent?" Some people whispered and communicated in private. Many people didn't know what was happening on the sea thousands of miles away. They only cared about finance and money. Saras and Robertson looked at each other and knew in their hearts that the money was definitely lost. As I said before, we can talk, but we must talk to the UK. If we lose money, we will lose money. Don't make other mistakes at this time. After the on-site meeting ended, everyone walked out of the conference room and lamented that the sea thousands of miles away was the top priority. They had not chosen the right time and there was no room for maneuver on this matter. Saras returned to Wall Street and immediately spoke to Robertson on the phone. They must admit their losses this time, contact Schroeder Group as soon as possible to negotiate, and close the short borrowed options. And John was already waiting for them. After the phone call, John explained the conditions he had prepared. As long as they were willing to acquire the shares of GFN held by Schroeder Group for us $4 billion, the transaction between the two parties on tungsten ore futures would be invalidated. $4 billion? It's not worth that much. $4 billion can buy 2 GFN. This is its value in my heart, Saras said to the phone, otherwise Robert would have invested directly. That was the original price. In the past few years, GFN's development is also in progress, and their investment in research and development in the chip field is also huge. Besides, if this drags on, it will only get worse for you. John did not show any concern at all. Fear. This price still needs to be discussed again, and GFN's growth and value should be viewed from multiple angles. June 15, 1996. In the years to come, when they look back on this year, they will say that it was a magnificent year. However, Lu Feng's feeling was ordinary. He went to inspect the headquarters building and made another trip. In Tianjin, I went to see the newly assembled photolithography machine assembly line, dust-free workshop, wafer workshop, etc. 2 months have passed since April, but the matter is still mentioned in the streets and alleys, and the tone is full of indignation, and the words are so angry that they can say, "Damn American guy." Compared with the national struggles that ordinary people see, Lu Feng pays more attention to state-owned enterprises. He went to several enterprises to inspect and visit. With more and more external restrictions, export-oriented enterprises have been hit hard, and the personnel of state-owned enterprises are overcrowded. The problem is further highlighted. Many places have noticed this problem. Some people dare to expose it, while others still push the issue back. During this period of inspection, Lu Feng was thinking about a problem. He knew what would happen in the next few years, but he was unable to stop it. Next, a large number of workers would leave their jobs. The initial stage of bone scraping and poison treatment was severe pain, but nowhere can so many jobs be created. Lu Feng sometimes feels that he is shouldering historical responsibilities, but he also has a deep sense of powerlessness, even though GFN now has hundreds of thousands of employees in several large factories. However, With the increase in personnel, the cost of expenses has become too high. Since last year, the wages of general workers in the factory have been reduced. This is the result of the discussion of the board of directors. John believes that profits must be increased, so the only way to cut off the salary is to cut off the revenue. GFN's half-year report has come out. The net profit in the first half of the year exceeded 500 million. As the domestic home appliance market continues to sell well, there is still room for growth in the second half of the year. The semi-annual report contains a detailed list of chip production. In the office, Inland Feng looked through the thick report and realized that it was profitable after all. Lu Feng picked up the phone on the table and called over, asking them to send this report to the board members for viewing. In the first half of the year, the task was overfulfilled, and the major project was progressing steadily. A few minutes later, Goodley knocked on the door of Lu Feng's office, walked in and said, "Mr. Lu, the mid-year conference call of the board of directors will be held by Schroeder Group in an hour. I hope you can participate." "Conference call?" Lu Feng frowned, stared at him and asked, "I should initiate the board meeting. What does he want to do? Play the piano randomly?" "I'm sorry, according to the Articles of Association of the Board of Directors, as long as the equity exceeds 40%, you are eligible to initiate a board meeting. Yesterday, some members were notified, and I will inform you today," Goodley said unhurriedly. Lu Feng could tell that this time the visitor was evil, so he asked, "What will be discussed in this meeting?" "I'm not sure about this. The administrative staff will arrange it for you in an hour." After speaking, Goodley turned around and left. Lu Feng called Wei Yandan and others over, and when he mentioned the matter, they felt that something was not right. Without this kind of practice, there was nothing worth discussing in the board of directors. Wait a minute and see what kind of medicine he sells in his gourd. An hour later, Lu Feng led several people to the conference room. Several phones had been connected, and the various voices coming from them seemed extremely noisy. "Everyone is here. It's already night here. As soon as everyone is here, let's have a meeting." John's voice came from the phone, saying, "This time, the board of directors meeting is just for one thing. We as investors believe that the current contract is very unfavorable to us, and after the investment, the management of GFN Group, represented by Lu Feng, did not meet our expectations." "Wait a minute, what do you mean by not meeting investors' expectations?" Lu Feng interrupted him and asked. "GFN has been expanding rapidly in the past 2 years, with market share, product updates and iterations, and sales channel expansion. Which one? Not at a rapid pace. Mr. Lu, please listen to me first. This is not what I mean. This is what the headquarters means. In the first half of this year, our investment strategic intentions are changing, and our global investment plans have changed. So, now we are facing 2 options. First, sell the GFN equity held in your hand, because under our evaluation system, it no longer has a future and is classified as junk equity." As soon as these words came out, the expressions of several people present changed, and they all looked at Lu Feng. They thought it would be at the end of the year, but they didn't expect it to have started now. "According to the agreed agreement, your equity will be eligible for trading after 3 years, that is, the end of next year. And we have the right of first refusal within the group," Lu Feng said solemnly. "If you want to realize the equity change, there is another way. The basic condition is to transfer the remaining funds. Your investment funds are currently incomplete. It seems that Mr. Lu doesn't agree. Let's take another approach. We will invest another $1 billion to acquire all the equity of Mr. Lu and the management, which is the original $3.5 billion to acquire 30%. 5 shares, changed to $3.5 billion to acquire 75% of the shares," John suggested. "Impossible. Absolutely impossible," Lu Feng refused directly and said, "Do you know how much GFN's inherent assets are now? Your people work in finance, and it cost $3.5 billion to buy such a large company. Enterprise, there is no such thing in the world. Then add more investors and dilute the equity. It's impossible. There is a stipulation in the contract that the equity will not be diluted within 3 years. What we are trading is the original stock, Lu Feng continued to retort. John on the phone seemed to have known that these would be rejected, and then suggested, Jia Feng has been unable to create any profits in the past few years. In the past, you said that market expansion requires maintaining competitiveness and investment in various hardware facilities. Now the early investment it's over, it should be profitable this year, right? I am here to report to you that Jia Feng Group achieved profitability in the first half of this year, with a net profit of 520 million yuan, Lu Feng replied. Then I propose to set a goal for the entire management this year, with a net profit of 2 billion for the whole year. Only in this way can we strengthen our investment confidence. Please vote on this matter, as well as Mr. Lu's various financial reports. Let the finance department check the reimbursement recently, John said solemnly. The all-around profit target was set at the board meeting at the beginning of the year, and it has no mandatory effect, Lu Feng retorted. If it is decided at a board meeting, of course it is not mandatory, but this clause is in my gift agreement. Gift agreement? Lu Feng felt that something was not right. That private jet? You signed the gift agreement, but you are not available? What is written in Chinese on the surface is a gift agreement, not an unconditional gift agreement. Section 3 of Article 25 and Section 6 of Article 37, it is a relevant clause, which stipulates that as long as you accept the gift, after the board of directors votes later, the voting result is equal to or greater than 50%, it can take effect, John said slowly. This is a conditional agreement. Betting agreement. Lu Feng's whole body was numb as he sat there, and he subconsciously said, I am Cao Nima. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1184. Latest website. Lu Feng didn't expect that there were so many things hidden in that ordinary board meeting half a year ago. Now it's too late. The only remaining line of defense was that the board of directors voted not to pass, but with so many things arranged in advance, Lu Feng's instinct told him that something was going to go wrong this time. In that case, let's vote. I agree, said a Goldman Sachs representative. I agree, Feng's Heshan's voice came from the phone. Lu Feng secretly exclaimed that it was indeed the case, and now the number of votes in favor reached 50%. According to the contents of the investor agreement of the board of directors, Gudley, who was sitting aside, said, as an investor, the group should respect the investors. Both parties adhere to the original intention of consultation and coordination, focusing on enterprise development as the core. This time the vote passed. Mr. Lu, do you have any objection to this result? If I have any objections, will this vote be stuck here forever? Will it continue until the end of the year? As long as it does not pass, will it be necessary to check whether my financial, tax, and group powers have exceeded my authority? Is that right? Is the group's administration standardized? Lu Feng asked a series of questions. Mr. Lu, relax, we all want the company to develop well. There is no need to be so sensitive about things rather than people. I believe that under your leadership, a profit of 2 billion will not be a problem. All shareholders will be. You have high hopes, John said meaningfully. Let's not talk about the situation. That's all. It's all past. Hang up the phone. After Lu Feng said that, he stood up and walked away. Zhu Lidong and others followed him out. As soon as they left the conference room door, Wei Yandan asked hurriedly, 2 billion? How can this be accomplished? Don't you see? This is a big trap and a small circle, just to prevent you from completing it. Zhu Lidong took a deep breath and said, be prepared. It has nothing to do with you in the short term. Go back to work and I'll handle it. After Lu Feng finished speaking, he walked towards his desk. As soon as he returned to the office, he called Feng Zhishan. No one answered the phone, so I called Jenkin again, and this time he picked up. Let Feng Zhishan answer the phone. I need an explanation from him for what he said in the conference call just now, Lu Feng said solemnly. Mr. Lu, Mr. Feng is busy. How about I make an appointment for you? Jenkin declined. Do you want to do this with me? Tell him, it's best to be honest. If I can get him up, I can get him down, Lu Feng scolded into the phone. Feng Zhishan was sitting next to him. When he heard Lu Feng being so arrogant on the phone, he immediately became upset and said, Lu, you have the final say in my family's business. You want me to go down? You want me to go down and take a look? I tell you, if Jiafeng is sold, you will get out too. So you're here. I thought you were a coward and didn't dare to come out. That's okay, your wings are stiff as soon as you come up, Lu Feng said angrily. What can you do to me? Do you know what Feng Xiao is doing now? Serving dishes. Now I am managing Sun Hongkai. So it is me who has the final say whether I support you. Otherwise, if you ask me, I will consider it. I will vote for you next time, Feng Zhishan teased. You are a grown man, you can bend and stretch. We can't change the situation. By the way, I have to say something to Jenkin. You must have a conscience. You have been following Mr. Feng for half your life. Before he died, you just watched his youngest son carry the plate. I believe that if he has a chance to be discharged from the hospital, he will be the first to tell you to get out, Lu Feng said solemnly. Before Jenkin could say anything, Feng Zhishan next to him said, What? Feng Xiao is his son, am I not? The wealth in this world is for capable people, not fools. Uncle Kun is a very good person. Not only is he capable, you still know who is a fool and who is a genius. Lu Feng didn't want to waste any more time talking to him, so he hung up the phone directly. He originally wanted to call Feng Xiao, but now Feng Xiao was afraid that he didn't even have his mobile phone. Lu Feng sighed, luckily he had saved a hand, otherwise he would have nothing. There was a knock on the office door. The financial manager opened the door and saw Lu Feng greeting him with a smile, and said, Mr. Lu, all your futures have been sold and can be transferred to your account at any time. Previously, from the company the borrowed money was also returned. Lu Feng took out his bank card from the drawer and was about to give it to him when he hesitated and said, There is no need to transfer it back to the domestic account. Help me create a bank account in Xiangjiang and deposit it in it. Okay, no problem, the person in charge of finance nodded, but refused to leave. Seeing him like this, Lu Feng understood and asked about the financial situation. He politely asked him to sit down and take a sip of tea. He then said that he had done a good job this time and would give him 1 million as a token of his gratitude. The other party then thanked him and left. After sending away the finance, Lu Feng took out his cell phone and called Su Yorong. The call was connected. The other person seemed to have known that he would call and ask directly, What? I want to get your little baby back. He must come back. You help me find him. Lu Feng thought for a while and said, Don't let anything happen. Xiangjiang is in chaos now. If Feng Zhishan jumps over the wall in a hurry and finds someone to give him some sticks, I have a headache. If you are not sure, just ask him to come to the mainland. There is a place to live. There is no need to go to the mainland. By the way, don't you want to buy a villa? I'll ask for you. Someone wants to sell villa number 8. The price is said to be $15 million. Office. There is also news from the building that 5 floors of the United Capitol building are vacant, with a total of 5,000 square meters. It should be enough, right? Su Yorong said, I can approve it to be rented to you at a low price, but you have to give me back the money. Lu Feng was speechless when he heard this and asked, Are you still short of money now? How much can you use to rent an office building for a year? Do you even want to make these millions? It's worth earning a little. I came from poverty. Besides, United Capital is not my company. My annual salary is only 1.5 million. If you want me to do something for you, then you have to settle silly accounts. Don't be too shrewd. A shrewd small businessman will be confused about a big business, right? Su Yorong said with a smile. It's your territory, I won't say anything. Lu Feng couldn't do anything to her and ordered, take Feng Xiao away immediately and make arrangements. Don't arrange it in a hotel. Don't worry, I'll take care of things. I'll make sure everything is properly arranged for him. Hang up, Su Yorong said and hung up the phone. During the board of directors conference call, Su Yorong knew that she had made some money again. Lu Feng's status was not suitable for frequent visits to Xiangjiang, so he could only entrust her to handle things. Where can anyone run errands for nothing these days? Su Yorong packed her bag, stepped out of the office on high heels, gave instructions to the president's office next to her, then went downstairs and drove straight to Fulin Hotel. It was now 3:30 in the afternoon, and the hotel had already finished get-off work. The environment in the dormitory was extremely messy, with more than a dozen bunk beds crowded inside. The aisle was only 1 person wide, and there were a few melon seed peels and various kinds of food scattered on the ground. Snack bags. Several young men wearing Chuan Keshan clothes were sitting on the bed and cracking melon seeds. One of them, a sinister-looking man, said, "Who the hell is on duty today?" "Master." "Where did you go?" A man stretched his head down on the bed and grabbed the bed frame with both hands, like a monkey. Feng Xiao was lying on his bed, staring blankly at the bedboard above his head. With a bit of anger on his face, he sat up suddenly and said dissatisfied, "What are you doing? What did you say you were doing? It's your turn to be on duty. I was the one who did it yesterday. How many days have I been cleaning this dormitory?" Feng Xiao didn't want to bear it anymore. This period of time made him truly understand what it means to be kind and bullied. He did the most work and received the most scoldings. And the money you get is the least. As for the countless insults these people subjected him to on a daily basis, Feng Xiao felt like a tiger being bullied by a dog at first, but later he felt that he was worse than a dog. "I won't sweep them away. Those who eat melon seeds every day, let them sweep them away." After Feng Xiao finished speaking, he lay down again. When the melon seed eaters heard this, they immediately stood up. The fierce-looking man walked up to Feng Xiao's bed, stepped on Feng Xiao's dark mattress, and asked with a cigarette in his mouth, "Who do you want to sweep?" Feng Xiao looked at the few people and felt a little scared, but he still said stubbornly, "I bought melon seeds for you, and bought soda for you the day before yesterday. I paid for all the money, and you said you gave it to me? Now let me sweep the floor. You are not such a bully. What's wrong with bullying you? Do you want to punish me?" another person asked. Feng Xiao looked at the few people who were afraid, but still calmed down and shouted, "No sweeps. Hit me." The 3 people stood beside the bed and kicked inside. Feng Xiao covered his body with the quilt. The other person ran over and pulled the quilt away, holding the sole of his shoe hard on his head. Feng Xiao felt his head was dizzy, and for a moment there seemed to be a breaking sound in his heart, so clear and crisp, like glass smashed on the cement floor. "Ah! You! I will fight with you. I'm not alive anymore. I'll pay you with your life." As if he was crazy, he got up from the bed, like an evil ghost from hell, and rushed towards the 3 of them with bared teeth and claws. He raised his fists, without looking or caring, and madly hit one of them on the head. Smashing. Feng Xiao couldn't feel the pain. The broken voice made him feel that he had lost everything and completely broke his bottom line. Nothing mattered anymore and he didn't care about anything. The 2 people next to him kept kicking his head with their feet, but Feng Xiao didn't care at all. He just beat the man in front of him crazily. The two fell into a ball and fell to the ground. Feng Xiao pressed him, stared at the man in front of him, and fiercely he opened his mouth and bit it in one bite. Ah! The pig-like howl resounded throughout the dormitory, and the vicious man's cheeks were already covered with blood. The two people next to him turned red when they saw it, and hurriedly backed away, not daring to participate anymore. I was wrong, I'm sorry, please let go. The howls and pleas for mercy shocked the entire dormitory. Everyone poked their heads out of the bed and saw 2 rows of teeth marks on the side of the fierce man's face. Blood continued to flow out of the teeth marks and had soaked his entire neck. It looked scary and anxious. Feng Xiao stood up and leaned on the bed frame with some staggering. He looked at the man begging for mercy in front of him and couldn't believe it, but the reality was that the person he was most afraid of these days was now begging for mercy. Latest website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1185. Latest website. Seeing that he had been bitten like this, the bystanders shouted, "Call the police, call the ambulance quickly." Feng Xiao panicked when he said this. He was very poor now. How could he compensate others? If he was imprisoned, he would never be released again. For the first time in his life, Feng Xiao felt so unsure. He was so panicked that he knelt down to admit his mistake. Before he could admit his mistake, someone opened the dormitory door. Su Yorong stood at the door and frowned, covering his face with his hands. He couldn't help but take a step back with his nose pinched. I heard you guys making noise from all the way. Why does this dormitory stink? Is it a pig's nest? The manager stepped forward and cursed involuntarily. When everyone saw that the manager had arrived and brought a beautiful woman with him, they all stepped forward and told him about Feng Xiao's biting, and shouted that they wanted to call the police. Su Yorong covered his mouth and nose and walked in to take a look. Feng Xiao stood there blankly, as if he was frightened. There was a man in his 20s lying on the dirty ground. His face was already covered with blood and his mouth was full of blood. Humming and hurting. The manager looked at Su Yorong. Feng Xiao couldn't leave now. Su Yorong also saw what they meant. He rummaged through his bag and found a stack of unsplit 10,000 Hong Kong dollars, and threw it on the ground. The man said, "Take this 10,000 yuan and go see a doctor yourself. Feng Xiao is coming with me." Feng Xiao didn't know why Su Yorong came to him, but he understood that this was his only chance to escape and hurriedly stepped over the man to leave. "You can't leave." The man was also anxious and hugged Feng Xiao's calf. What kind of wealthy family is the Feng family? If Feng Xiao had no one to care about him, he wouldn't say anything. Now that there is someone to care about it, this matter is not worth 10,000 yuan. It's about money. For them, 10,000 yuan is too little. As long as they seize this opportunity, they will not have to worry about it for the rest of their lives. Bite me to the point where you want to leave after giving me 10,000 yuan? How could such a simple thing happen? The arrogant man yelled. Others hurriedly spoke up when they saw this. The manager naturally understood what he meant and muttered to Su Yorong that the money was too little. Everyone's face was covered in blood and they looked disfigured. What could you do with 10,000 yuan? The dormitory was so smelly that Su Yorong couldn't stay any longer, so he walked out and said, "It's only 10,000 yuan. If I can solve it, I'll solve it. If I can't solve it, I'll ask others to solve it." "No one can solve it, call the police," the man lying on the ground yelled. Seeing this, Su Yorong didn't say much nonsense. He took 2 steps outside and took out his mobile phone to make a call. Then he got back to the car and waited. Half an hour later, a Jinbei car and a police car arrived at almost the same time. The Jinbei car jumped out. 6 or 7 men with fierce looks came down. When these men met the police, they exchanged a few words and then the police left. Then a group of people entered the dormitory. In less than 2 minutes, Feng Xiao walked out, got in the car and drove away. In the luxurious business car, the feeling came back all of a sudden. If Feng Xiao hadn't looked at the calluses on his hands over the past few days, he would have suspected it was a dream. Change into clothes and take a shower later, Su Yorong said. Feng Xiao was silent for a while and asked, "Did Brother Feng ask you to come?" "Yes." "Then why didn't he let you come before?" Feng Xiao asked again. "He only found out recently." Feng Xiao stopped talking. He knew what all this was about. Although many details were unclear, he had experienced a lot these days, but he also gained a lot. Only when you are at the bottom can you get close to the most real world. Because you have no value, they will not have any scruples in speaking. Not only does he understand this, but Feng Xiao also understands the exchange of interests between people. The first person to arrive at the canteen always gets the top dish, which has more oil and water, and can pick and choose. The last person is left with only soup. Water. He wanted to ask someone to help him prepare meals, but no one cared about him. Later, he helped a man in his 40s on duty, and the man prepared meals for him. The man's wife was responsible for preparing meals in the employee canteen. Feng Xiao once really thought that kindness would allow him to obtain the most precious thing in the world, but now he understands that kindness is like oily skin on rice soup, which is precious but useless. During these days, what Feng Xiao understood the most was trading, helping others on duty, others helping him prepare meals, cleaning the dormitory, others not bullying him, running errands for others, praising others, and others were willing to trade days off with him. He began to understand the meaning of trading, what he has, what he needs, what others have, and what others need. No one needs his kindness, but if you show kindness after trading with others, your kindness will turn into oily skin on rice soup, golden. I'll arrange a private place for you. You stay here first and try not to go out. Lu Feng might come in a few days and help you get your property. How is your dad doing recently? Su Yorong asked. Feng Xiao wanted to say that he had gone to see him a few days ago and it was still the same, but when he spoke, he became wary, turned his face and glanced at Su Yorong and said, "I have fallen into this situation now. I don't care. My dad." When the car arrived at the place, he helped Feng Xiao make arrangements, and at the same time left him some money and a few people to follow him to avoid anything going wrong. After Su Yorong left, Feng Xiao washed up and changed his clothes. He sat in the villa and turned on the TV to watch casually, but he was constantly thinking about it. After some thinking, he guessed that something was wrong with Feng Xian, and now he needed himself. Top it up. Feng Xiao was a little disappointed and a little grateful to Lu Feng. He was disappointed because he did not have such a pure relationship with him, but he was grateful because he still had some trading value. The villa was very large, and it seemed very empty when sitting there alone. Feng Xiao stood up and walked around the room alone, feeling a sense of loneliness. He had never felt lonely in his life before. He felt that he was so close to everyone around him, but the experience during this period made his whole person undergo earth-shaking changes. The world suddenly felt so lonely, and everyone seemed so far away. All night, Feng Xiao was thinking about how to get the gift contract back. He knew without thinking that Feng Xian must have taken it away. At 1 o'clock at midnight, in the intensive care unit of the hospital, an alarm suddenly sounded in Mr. Feng's room. A group of nurses rushed over, followed by several doctors. All the indicators on the instruments were declining, and the doctors rushed to rescue him. At 2:10 midnight, after resuscitation, the blood pressure, heartbeat, and pulse were slowly weakening, the pupils began to dilate, and the breathing became breathless. After 5 minutes, the doctor stopped resuscitating me. According to the previous agreement, the hospital called Feng Xiao but couldn't get through at all. They had to look for him overnight. When they arrived at the hotel, they were told that Feng Xiao had been accepted. At 4:30 in the middle of the night, Feng Xiao was awakened from his sleep. He went downstairs and answered the phone. After confirming that it was Feng Xiao on the other end, he informed him that his father had died. "Okay, I understand. Thank you for your hard work. Don't tell anyone about this yet." Feng Xiao put down the phone after saying that. It was late at night, and there were still more than 2 hours before dawn. The room was so dark that he could not see his fingers. Feng Xiao sat blankly on the sofa alone. He was stunned for a few minutes. His nasal cavity began to feel moist. He pressed hard, he pursed his lips and took a deep breath. Tears fell from his eyes and fell into the darkness. After a while, he found the remote control and turned on the TV to divert his attention, but there was no TV at all in the middle of the night, only a rustling snowflake. He found 2 unopened packs of cigarettes from under the coffee table, lit one and it choked his throat. He couldn't stop his tears from flowing and didn't make a sound. In London, John was having a conference call. On the phone, he told several companies on Wall Street about the current situation of GFN, and said that GFN is now the largest home appliance manufacturer in Asia. As long as they take over and resolve the restrictions, they will cover the entire Asian market. Is just a matter of time. Sign the contract now and you can start trading after the new year, and they guarantee that the acquired company will truly control GFN. After signing the contract now, the futures account will be written off, and the transaction will be official next year. We need more detailed information and data. In the information you submitted, we did not see market conditions, sales channels, or soft assets. We will provide these later, John replied. Moreover, in the equity structure of this company, 30% of the equity is used as incentive equity for the management, and they can also have voting rights on the board of directors through election. We don't like this, someone else said. These can all be changed. I believe you can solve these problems without much effort after taking over. Moreover, Goldman Sachs still has 5% of the equity. As long as it gets another 100% from United Capital or Sun Hung Kai with 10% of the equity, you will take complete control of this company. You have to understand what such a huge enterprise represents. At this critical time, there may be other unexpected effects, John reminded. As long as there are no problems, an agreement should be reached within 2 months. Domestically, Lu Feng has arrived in Tianjin today. The lithography machine equipment is in the final stage of debugging. The first batch of products will be tested. This time Liukin came with a team of engineers. At 9:30 in the morning, the first batch of materials arrived and the factory environment was tested. Lu Feng stood behind the glass wearing a tight dust-proof suit and watched the huge factory building busy. There shouldn't be much of a problem. At most, the yield rate is a little low. We will debug it slowly later. Although the workers have been trained for a long time, I feel that the operation is still unskilled. Liukin stood aside and said with relief. To tell you the truth, I'm more excited now than when I was standing outside the delivery room. Lu Feng looked at Liukin, who was aside, and said, domestic companies were able to produce chips in the 1970s, but there are still too few large-scale commercial uses. This will be a huge step. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1186. Latest website. A few hours later, the first batch of products came off the production line. After passing the inspection, a few pieces of qualified products were placed in front of Lu Feng. These thumb-sized pieces on the desk looked so small, but they were useless. Such a big effort. What's the yield rate? Lu Feng asked the person in charge. More than 40%, the other party said cautiously. This is too low. Is there a parameter problem in any link? Liukin said in disbelief. This still needs to be adjusted slowly. Lu Feng picked up these chips and looked through them for a while, then said, improve the yield rate and let the engineer team take turns stationing here. If there are any problems, we can solve them as soon as possible. The current yield rate is too bad and we must improve it to more than 90%, or even more than 95%. What is the patent fee for our chips now? It's about $10 per product, Lyokin said from the side. I don't think it's necessary to pay the patent fee in the short term. Unless they want to export it overseas, otherwise they will have to file a lawsuit. When these products are connected to mobile phone manufacturers, remember to keep good accounts. This factory belongs to the R/U0026D company, and the accounts of all kinds of imports and exports belong to you. After Lu Feng gave the instructions, he said, this is a breakthrough sign. Tonight let them prepare a lively dinner party. Lu Feng had just finished the meeting in the afternoon. When he walked out of the conference room, a clerk came over and whispered, Mr. Lu, I have your phone number. Whose? Lu Feng asked casually. It's from Xiangjiang, and his name is Feng Xiao. Lu Feng was slightly stunned and said, I know, give me your phone. After taking the phone, Lu Feng greeted the others and walked towards a deserted corner, calling back the number as he walked. After the call was connected, Lu Feng said into the phone, Xiao, where are you now? How are Mr. Su's arrangements for you? I'm fine now. I'm in a villa. Today, Mr. Su gave me your number. I sold my previous mobile phone because I was desperate. I can't find your mobile number either. I'm sorry, Brother Feng. I'll call you this time. I just want to tell you something. Feng Xiao paused and said, my dad is gone. Lu Feng didn't have much reaction to the death of Mr. Feng. This was expected, but he suddenly felt that Feng Xiao's voice was less childish and his words were full of calmness. Sorry, please take care of yourself. Does anyone outside know about this? Lu Feng asked. No one knows that the body that signed a confidentiality agreement with the hospital is now frozen. Feng Xiao continued, the agreement signed with Feng Zhishan was placed in the old house, and he should have already obtained it. Don't be anxious about this matter. I'll rush over in a few days. It's yours, no matter what, it's yours. Now you just need to ensure your own safety, Lu Feng ordered. On the phone, Lu Feng expressed concern for Feng Xiao a few more times, and his behavior on the other end was more restrained, and he no longer spoke out like before. A man grows very quickly. There is no specific stage. It may only take a few minutes. When stimulated by the outside world, he will quickly change from a boy to a man. Lu Feng hung up the phone and went to several more meetings. He made adjustments to the machine in the past 2 days, and the yield rate has increased to more than 80%. Lyokin mobilized several teams of engineers to continue communicating with overseas engineers. With communication, it should be no problem to increase the yield rate to about 95% within a month. Jiafeng's chip production has not been announced to the outside world, but there is no airtight wall in the world. Jiafeng's mobile phone channels have received relevant news and will be supplied to the market this year. The most critical link in the mobile phone market has been broken, which means that inflated prices will no longer exist. Moreover, some people have revealed privately that Jiafeng wholesales chips to the open market and will mass produce more types of chips, more sophisticated motherboards, and memories next year. Among them, Jiafeng has world-class memory technology, including computer storage strips and mobile phone memory cards. Technology in this area has been competing with major international manufacturers such as Sony and Toshiba. Jiafeng's rapid development in this area is mainly due to the team of engineers it poached. Jiafeng currently ranks first in the country in terms of technical reserves in storage, with professional teams in VCD patents, DVD domestic patents, disputed, computer storage, mobile phone storage, etc. With the start of production, the sales department has begun to contact domestic computer manufacturers, hoping to supply them, and is also paving the way for the wholesale and retail market. If GFeng competes with many experts in the field of home appliances, then it is absolutely unparalleled in terms of chips, storage, motherboards, communications, etc. GFeng's mass production of communication chips quickly spread to the United States. All parties had different reactions to this matter. The atmosphere in a luxurious conference room on Wall Street was a bit tense. More than a dozen people sitting there seemed cramped. Among them were Watanabe Shi. As the door of the conference room opened, a bald man came in, sat down and said, "What's going on with GFeng Group? What does your strategy department do? What are you busy doing every day?" Watanabe bit the bullet and said, "Our work has been effective recently. Under our pressure, Toshiba has submitted some technical patents and reached an agreement with Intel. In terms of the global market, we have improved very quickly. Samsung semiconductor market share is also increasing, and the company is currently controlled by Wall Street. Are you asking for credit from me? Isn't this part of your job?" The bald man frowned, slammed the folder in his hand on the table and yelled, "This matter is no small matter. Their lithography machine, where did it come from? Where did the communication chips used to produce mobile phones come from? I still don't know yet." Watanabe Shi didn't know what to say. Since coming to Goldman Sachs, he has focused mainly on Japan and South Korea. Fuzhou focused on high-end technologies and asked them to hand over their technologies through cooperation or oppression. Customs: the United States has long launched anti-dumping against Fuzhou semiconductor products. Wall Street controls Samsung, and they have begun to support Samsung semiconductor companies in large quantities. In Watanabe's eyes, China is a marginal player in this game, and companies like GFeng really do not pose any threat in terms of technology. But now it turns out that GFeng produced communication chips, making his previous achievements in vain. Private forces are going to investigate, and official forces are also going to investigate. We must find out where GFeng's lithography machine comes from and who sold it in a short time. The bald man gave the death order, and the atmosphere in the office was extremely depressed. In 2 days, Lu Feng had almost settled the chip matter and immediately set off for Xiangjiang. Before leaving, he made a phone call with the people above him, hoping that he would be safe in Xiangjiang and at least not be arrested. After getting a positive answer, Lu Feng boarded the ferry to Xiangjiang on July 1, 1996. He arrived on the other side in less than half an hour and got into the car arranged by Su Yurong to meet Feng Xiao. When passing through some core areas, Lu Feng could see the countdown outside through the car window, which was exactly 365 days. "How is he doing?" Lu Feng asked Su Yurong. "If I hadn't been there that day, he might have gotten into trouble. During this period, he could be considered a completely different person. He has become much more stable." Su Yurong casually talked about what happened that day. "Help me find the best law firm in Xiangjiang. This matter must be handled by a lawyer," Lu Feng said solemnly. The car stopped at the entrance of the villa. Lu Feng got out of the car. When he saw Su Yurong getting out of the car, he said, "You go about your business, there's no need to go in." Su Yurong hesitated for a moment, then closed the car door. "This single-family villa looks very nice, and the yard is not small. It is surrounded by trees and grass, and it is very well hidden." When I opened the door and walked in, Feng Xiao was sitting in the living room reading the newspaper. He looked a lot older. Those eyes lost their original clarity and became much more steady. "Brother Feng is here? Did you arrive today?" Feng Xiao stood up, not looking too excited, more like being polite. "I just got off the pier half an hour ago." "You worked hard." "It's Brother Feng who didn't do a good job." Lu Feng walked up and patted him on the shoulder and said, "Sit down and talk." Feng Xiao didn't talk nonsense. He now wanted to get back his share of the inheritance and regain control of Sun Hongkai. He kept saying in his words that as long as he controlled Sun Hongkai, he would definitely support Lu Feng. Fortunately, I was more cautious at the time, otherwise I would be really helpless now. It doesn't matter if I don't have the contract in my hand. As long as no one knows that your father has passed away, the contract is not the final contract. Lu Feng helped him after some analysis. He said, now we need to find a lawyer to reiterate your father's will. If the other party refutes it, they need to come up with the contract. No matter how we do it, we will definitely win. Brother Feng, you can do whatever you say. I have no choice now. To tell you the truth, when I was the poorest some time ago, I only had a few dollars left. Feng Xiao pulled out a stick with a wry smile on his face. The cigarette is lit. It will get better. You can live here peacefully. I will bring my lawyer over in the afternoon. You will sign your authorization then. This matter needs to be published in the newspaper. Lu Feng had dinner with Feng Xiao at noon, and he could clearly feel that he had really changed. He was not as noisy as before, and he seemed much calmer. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Lu Feng arrived at Su Yorong's office. The other party crossed his legs and asked, would you like to go upstairs to see your office area first, or the villa? I'd better meet the lawyer first. Lu Feng asked, when will he come? You also know how busy the barrister's schedule is. This is all to save my face. He said he would be here at 2:30, and there are still 10 minutes left. Su Yorong stood up and glanced at the roof, and said, the upstairs is yours. As for the office area, I suggest you arrange your office upstairs so that we are separated by a floor. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1187. Latest website. It's just a few steps away. By the way, has Hurricane Capital withdrawn its equity? Lu Feng asked. It's very troublesome. Now Hurricane Capital controls United Capital, and I am a director of Hurricane Capital. Besides, why should we be so clear about each other? Su Yorong thought for a while and said, even if you want to separate next year, let Hurricane Capital to use capital to control mainland enterprises. You also need financing, right? Let's talk about financing. We won't necessarily be short of funds by then. Lu Feng said, I don't think the situation will be too bad. Su Yorong doesn't think the answer is that simple. What Lu Feng wants is to control the R/U0026D company. By then, all Jiafeng products will have to charge patent fees. The problem is that the R/U0026D company needs to invest a lot of money every year. They only need to stop you for 1 year. The R/U0026D company immediately became a rootless duckweed. Su Yorong knew this problem very clearly, so she was sure that Lu Feng's company needed financing. Half an hour later, several lawyers came and several people entered the reception room. Lu Feng briefly explained the situation. The lawyer's advice was to issue a statement first and publish the matter. As long as there is no news within 7 days, people objected, and all original contracts were voided. Lu Feng called Feng Xiao over, and the two parties drafted a declaration of inheritance rights, which was notarized and sent to the newspaper for publication. At around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Lu Feng sent Feng Xiao back, and then followed Su Yorong to the Repulse Bay Villa area. This area is a famous tourist attraction. There are an endless stream of tourists on the beach. It becomes quieter after entering the private area. The 700 square meter large villa is very impressive, with a 2-acre private garden and a kilometer-long private coastline. Everything here is as desirable as a seaside manor. $15 million. Lu Feng stood in front of the villa, looked around, took a deep breath and said, it's too big. Didn't you say that she doesn't want to come with you? It's really too big for the two of us, Su Yorong said, standing aside. Lu Feng turned his head and glanced at her, and said angrily, what's the matter with you? I've helped you so much, what's wrong with living in your house? Lu Feng turned around and decided to buy. He turned back to Su Yorong and asked, "When are we going to meet the landlord? Then I'm afraid it will be difficult for you to see him. He has moved to the UK. Otherwise, how could this house be sold?" Su Yorong said to Lu Feng. "He has an agent in Xiangjiang. Find a lawyer and talk to them. Just contact me. By the way, do you still have money?" "Why do I have no money?" Lu Feng asked with a smile. "At the end of last year, didn't you spend all your money to invest in a bank?" Su Yorong asked. "Why do you want to invest in a bank?" The combination of these two words, mainland and private bank, is very risky. "So I don't know anything about the company, I just hold shares. It's been half a year, and I haven't even gotten the semi-annual report," Lu Feng said helplessly. "Just make money in a days. Besides, more than 10 million I can still get the US dollars personally." In the evening, as the newspaper published it, it quickly aroused everyone's heated discussion. All major media called Feng Xiao to inquire about related matters. Sun Hongkai, Feng Zhishan looked unhappy when he saw the statement in the newspaper. He looked at the people opposite and said, "Didn't he give up? Why didn't he work hard in the hotel and start making trouble? I heard that Lu Feng is here." Feng Zhishan sneered. Obviously he didn't help him, and now he picked up the trash like Feng Xiao again. "Have you got that contract?" "It has been searched from the old house." The other party hesitated and said, "But there is a problem with the supplementary clauses inside. The lawyer who signed the contract at the time has also ran away. We will use this contract to refute his statement of rights. It's equivalent to giving up your inheritance rights. Then don't take out the contract, just raise an objection and tell them that this part of the inheritance rights is mine," Feng Zhishan said. The faces of the lawyers across from him were a bit unsightly. If Mr. Feng died, he would still be able to mess around a little bit. It is normal for his brothers to have internal strife. The court will not interfere too much. The problem is that Mr. Feng is not dead yet. In a legal sense, the equity of Sun Hongkai still belongs to your father. As long as he speaks, you will be kicked out immediately, and he can still modify the will," the lawyer reminded. Feng Zhishan's expression changed after hearing this, and after a while he said, "I'll go to the hospital to visit my dad later." In the evening, after dinner, Lu Feng still didn't wait for Feng Zhishan to come and express his objections. He didn't come up with the contract and there was no movement. This left several people a little confused. "I guess he has discovered the problem with the supplementary clauses of the contract, so the contract will not be released." Feng Xiao sighed and said, "I'm afraid he will use nonsense." "You are really enlightened." Lu Feng glanced at Feng Xiao in surprise, thought for a long time, and suddenly said, "He won't visit your dad, will he? Let him know that your dad has passed away." "Well, if it takes effect, no one can touch the property ownership in your father's name, so there will be room for mischief." Feng Xiao was stunned when he heard this and said hurriedly, "I'll call the hospital." When I called, the person on the other end said that Feng Zhishan had indeed gone to see Mr. Feng, but the hospital had stopped him because the patient was critical, and he was still making trouble now. After putting down the phone, before Feng Xiao could say anything, Lu Feng had already stood up and waved him away, and the two of them rushed to the hospital. At the entrance of the intensive care unit of the hospital, Feng Zhishan and a few people yelled at the medical staff. His face was full of displeasure. Lu Feng jogged forward and said, "Mr. Feng, why are you so angry? This is a hospital, not your home." Feng Zhishan turned around and saw Lu Feng, his brows furrowed a little, and he said, "I'm here to see my dad, can't I? No matter who the father is, he must follow the doctor's request. Not to mention you, Feng Xiao can't see you. Now is the critical moment." The doctor said that after up to half a year of treatment, Mr. Feng can be discharged from the hospital. Lu Feng looked towards Feng Zhishan. He smiled and said, "I'm so happy for you." The words "discharged from the hospital" were like a heavy hammer in Feng Zhishan's heart, making him a little scared. If his own father was discharged from the hospital and learned that Feng Xiao was serving dishes at a restaurant, he might not be able to get even a dime. "You have no right to stop me from seeing my dad," Feng Zhishan shouted at Feng Xiao. "Where is my dad? Is he really in the ward, or has he gone somewhere because of you? Because dad's physical condition is of great concern to the outside world, I came directly to this hospital. Besides, you didn't pay for it? The hospital signed a confidentiality agreement and won't tell you." Feng Xiao stepped forward and continued, "My condition is very good now. I bought a new specific drug from Europe some time ago. I believe I will be discharged from the hospital soon." "I don't believe it. I don't believe anything you say unless you let dad tell me personally." Feng Zhishan stared at Feng Xiao suspiciously. "Believe it or not, you should leave Sun Hongkai now and leave the position that belongs to me. Now, whether it is the company or the old house, it belongs to my father's property." "He is not dead yet," Feng Xiao said with anger in his voice. I believe you and treat you like a family member. If you sign the agreement, you will kick me out of the house. How can I get the things that belong to me thrown away? Can I take back the things you gave to me and others? Did I give it to you? Come out with the gift agreement. If there is no gift agreement, then it will be done according to the will. What's more, dad is not dead yet," Feng Xiao scolded. "You are worse than a pig or a dog." Feng Zhishan's expression changed after being scolded by him. He stared at Feng Xiao tightly and said, "Then you can go ahead and sue. If you get it back, I will leave with my head down." After Feng Zhishan finished speaking, he strode away quickly. Lu Feng turned around and looked at Feng Zhishan's back with a worried expression. He really couldn't imagine how Feng Zhishan could be so confident. Now that everything was going against him, if he really sued him to the court, he would lose even his pants. "Hurry up and sue," Lu Feng patted Feng Xiao on the shoulder and said, "First return the property rights to your father, then make a clear will, get your position in the company back, and let the court kick him out. I'll talk to the lawyer tomorrow." "I didn't expect someone to be such a rogue," Feng Xiao said a little indignantly. Lu Feng felt that the other party was confident in saying this, and he was afraid that someone in the UK would support him in doing so, which would cause trouble. Early the next morning, the major media once again focused on the Feng family. The grudges between the wealthy family were renewed. The youngest son returned with a plate to fight for the family property. All kinds of headlines were eye-catching. Feng Xiao discussed with his lawyer and formally submitted the indictment. A large number of reporters outside the court frantically surrounded the lawyer to inquire about the situation. More people are paying attention to Mr. Feng's physical condition. Feng Xiao said in front of the camera that his father was slightly better, but before he died, Feng Zhishan rushed back to seize the family property, occupy the company, and drive him out. Facing various questions from reporters, Feng Xiao appeared much more mature. On a golf course, as a golf shot was played, Patton handed the club in his hand to the caddy next to him, turned around and walked to the rest area, and said to Feng Zhishan beside him, "Read the newspaper this morning." "Already? They're all scolding you." "It doesn't matter, these rubbish media are just misses. Whoever pays them gets the goods. In comparison, I care more about your opinion. In any case, you are still in charge now." Feng Zhishan looked at the other party after speaking. "I support my friends. Today next year, I will have returned to my hometown." Patton sat down and took a sip of water, and said leisurely, "I still hope someone can play some impressions here. If you support us, I will support you." "I absolutely support it. Mr. John supports me. Of course I support you. Don't worry about the court matters," Feng Zhishan said with a smile. Latest website. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1188. Latest website. The two chatted very lively, and there seemed to be a feeling that they had met too late. Feng Zhishan described his future for Sun Hongkai and promised that as long as he could stand firm, he would open a branch in London and hire him. Hold executive positions. Feng Zhishan called John again in the evening and communicated with each other. In a few days, the Feng family's matter has become a hubbub, and the city is full of uproar. All major newspapers are following up on the report, but there is no movement from the court. The lawyer pressed several times but made no progress. I learned privately through connections that they just wanted to delay it. According to insiders, the case will definitely be delayed until next year. Until the verdict is handed down, Feng Zhishan will retain control of the company. In the villa, Feng Xiao looked unhappy when he heard the lawyer's reaction. He wanted to talk to him about the law, so he came to talk to him. In the past few days, Feng Zhishan kept asking to see Mr. Feng, and Feng Xiao also pushed back. Lu Feng sat aside and smoked a cigarette. He looked at the lawyer and asked, that is to say, whether it is Feng Xiao's appeal or Mr. Feng's appeal, the result will be the same, right? Unless Mr. Feng can stand up on his own, the lawyer said. Mr. Feng must not be able to stand up. At most, he will be praised. Lu Feng smoked a cigarette and asked, then can Feng Xiao appeal on behalf of Mr. Feng? Get back his property ownership. The lawyer sighed and showed his cards. Let me tell you this matter is first and foremost a family matter. The plaintiff and defendant are both members of the same family. The court can use the argument of maintaining the relationship between family members to settle the matter. I really want to delay it for a while. It's easy for half a year. As for me, I also know a lot of people in the court. Let's put it this way, there are big people behind this matter, and the court is also doing it according to their wishes. The right to interpret the legal provisions is in their hands. I believe you two also know who is behind it. Instead of sitting in the court if you are entangled, it is better to talk to the person behind it directly. This may be the fastest solution. A year and a half? Lu Feng couldn't wait for a year, nor even half a year. If it really came to the end of the year, his position on the board of directors would be gone. Thank you for your hard work, Lu Feng said politely. After sending the lawyer away, Lu Feng turned around and looked at Feng Xiao. The other person had a gloomy expression and was leaning against the doorframe, looking a little depressed. He said to himself, Brother Feng, do you think I can blame my dad? I've experienced something, son, maybe it won't be the current result. People are about fate, and people and things are also about fate. Lu Feng patted him on the shoulder and said, don't worry, it will get better. Contact Feng Zhishan and talk to him about your dad. Is this a solution? The solution is, it's getting late, I'll go back first. Feng Xiao watched Lu Feng go out and get into the car, and he murmured in his heart, would it be useful to talk to him about family ties? Lu Feng returned to the villa. Su Yorong was already back. He was sitting on the sofa watching the news. He looked at Lu Feng and asked, how is it? The matter is very difficult. Lu Feng briefly explained the matter, but did not say that Mr. Feng had passed away, only that he was still seriously ill. This time, my arm really couldn't twist my thigh. I got the news from a friend this afternoon that this matter has something to do with patent. Su Yorong looked at Lu Feng and said, you now know that the Schroders group is behind this. They are causing trouble. In addition, the current situation in Xiangjiang, no matter how favorable it is, it will only happen after July 1st next year. Lu Feng sat there with a gloomy expression, rubbing his face with his hands and feeling suffocated. After a long time, he sighed, it's hard to go out when the country is weak. Even the doorstep of our house can make people sick. The situation is very unfavorable for you now. There are fewer and fewer cards in your hand. It will be difficult for you to leave with the R/U0026D company at the end of this year. What you are most afraid of is that someone will give you an IOU. You leave, Su Yorong said helplessly. Stop fighting, the current situation is too difficult. Lu Feng sat there without saying a word, just smoking a dull cigarette. Feng Xiao could not take back the control of Sun Hongkai. After Zhu Lidong and a group of senior executives were fired at the end of this year, a new group of people came in. He was really sitting on the bench. Putting aside whether Schroeder will sell its equity, after the equity dilution can be carried out in another year, Lu Feng will become an inconspicuous figure on the board of directors in a few years. If he thinks he can defeat me, then I will make it difficult for him to swallow it, Lu Feng said with a gloomy face. In London, the first thing John did when he got to work was to communicate with Feng Zhishan. On the phone, Feng Zhishan was still worried that something would go wrong. Yesterday, he talked to Patton about detaining Lu Feng and prosecuting him first in Hong Kong. Just think, the things he committed in the UK are enough to get him jailed. Even if Jiafeng is sold, he will still get a large sum of money, which is a huge fortune, Feng Zhishan said to talking on the phone. John leaned back in his chair and thought about Feng Zhishan's words. This did mean to kill everyone. Although he knew that Lu Feng went to the UK to engage in a Ponzi scheme, Lu Feng probably didn't have much evidence to prove himself. As for the other people involved, there must be no substantial evidence. This is not a good thing, but what you said makes sense. He and I are old friends. I really can't bear to see him in jail, John sighed. You don't have to go to jail. You just have to drag him in court for a few years, and then ask him to pay a sum of money in compensation and pay some security deposits. Once the money is drained, he will be released, Feng Zhishan said rather sinisterly. After all, the most painful person in the world is there's just no money. The person on the other end of the phone hesitated for a moment and agreed to let him and Patton figure it out. The group would then provide some support. As soon as Feng Zhishan hung up the phone, Feng Xiao's call came in. It's me, Feng Xiao. Feng Xiao's tone seemed a bit decadent, and he said, I think we should have a good talk, not for anything else, but for Dad. What? You start begging me after you can't fight, Feng Zhishan said disdainfully. Isn't your brother Feng very powerful? Can't even handle this. I really want to talk to you. No matter what, we are all brothers. Do you know what the outside world is saying about you? Even if you gave me a chance to eat, I wouldn't have gotten into this situation with you. I don't have any great ambitions, I just have to live in a haze every day, Feng Xiao said with great sincerity. The trouble is like this now because you didn't give me food or a way to live. What can I do? Of course I'm hanging out with Lu Feng. I'll do whatever he says. At least I'll have food to eat. When you arrive, don't you understand the solution to this matter now? Feng Zhishan was stunned when he heard this, not knowing whether what he said was true or false. After hesitating for a while, he said, how about this? I'll organize a dinner party tomorrow, and you can come over and take Lu Feng with you. How about that? Good. Feng Xiao agreed. In his opinion, this should be a good start. At least they could meet and talk. He was not stupid. He thought about buying a voice recorder and recording the conversation between the two of them as a last resort. Will be announced to the media. At about 10 o'clock in the evening, Lu Feng received a call from Feng Xiao. The two communicated and Lu Feng was sure that he could attend. You'd better think about this matter. At this point, there is no longer any friendship, and you can use any means, Su Yorong reminded. You have to know that there is a wanted person on you. The order is with you. That's really a big deal. Although Lu Feng felt uneasy, he didn't take it seriously. Early the next morning, the headlines of major newspapers in Xiangjiang were basically occupied by the Feng family's affairs. The outside world was speculating whether the old man of the Feng family was still alive or not. There were even a bunch of reporters surrounding the entrance of the hospital, Asking questions through various channels. Information. In the United States, outside an office on Wall Street, Shi Watanabe took a sealed file bag and hurried to the door of the office and knocked on the door. With the sound coming in, he opened the door and walked in with a bit of joy on his face. When he walked in and saw the bald man in his seat, he couldn't hide his excitement and said, "We found where Jiafeng's lithography machine comes from. You are very fast, faster than the CIA." Close the door, the bald man praised with a pleasant look on his face. "At the critical moment, we still have to rely on you. Others are really bad. Agencies such as the CIA and FBI don't care about our business. Just do it as a matter of fact." Watanabe closed the door, opened the file bag and took out the information inside. There were not only detailed information, but also many photos of the scene. Czech Republic, the bald man frowned. He didn't expect such a small country to dare to do such a thing. "I sent someone to contact this company. That company went bankrupt and was taken over by a local social leader with little education. He typically sold it for money. The main problem was transportation. This time it was mainly Lu Feng has a good personal relationship with the Thai prince in the Thai royal family's fleet, and he himself operates the fleet there very well," explained Watanabe Shi. The bald man looked through the information, his face already ugly. He just nodded and told Shi Watanabe that the information was very useful. He gave him a few words of verbal praise and said he would be held accountable. The phone call quickly conveyed the news to the relevant departments, and meetings were held one after another. According to the Wassenaar Agreement, sanctions should be imposed in this situation, but they were unwilling to sanction Thailand. All departments have rejected the proposal to impose sanctions on Thailand. At this time, countries surrounding China cannot use big sticks indiscriminately. Once used, they will rush into China's arms. We held meetings for 2 days in a row and called all the top executives of Wall Street. At the meeting, Soros and others suddenly became angry when they heard that it was Lu Feng again. If he hadn't bothered, the futures matter would not have happened. As for what happened now, their deal is still under negotiation. Since all apparent means are undesirable, then use economic means, Soros suggested. The value of the Thai baht has a very strong incentive to short sell. Their foreign exchange reserves are seriously insufficient. As long as there is a little pressure, it will be like pieces of paper shatter like pieces. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1189. Latest website. Soros's proposal has been supported by the vast majority of people. The economy has cyclical laws and cannot be manipulated in the concept of economics. Even if Wall Street goes short, it can only be said that they comply with economic laws and cannot be considered a deliberate attack. After the meeting dispersed, Soros immediately contacted the personnel of the Federal Reserve and reported the matter, hoping to receive financial support. As night fell in Xiangjiang, Lu Feng changed his clothes and prepared to go to the appointment. He looked at Su Yorong aside and said, "Are you going tonight?" "I will definitely go. As long as I want to go to the banquet here, I can go." Su Yorong stood up and said, "I'm too lazy to change clothes. Everyone is probably here to watch the fun tonight. Whether it makes a big fuss, everyone knows it. When the other party wants to take some extreme measures, you have to weigh it," Lu Feng said. "Then you know that there is a theory circulating in the circle recently, saying that Feng Xiao teamed up with you, an outsider, to seize the Feng family's property." Su Yorong lit a lady's cigarette, took a puff and said, "You'd better be more careful, right?" "Yes, the sales contract for the villa has been signed and placed in the car, just in time to bring it to you." The two of them chatted and went out. After getting in the car, Lu Feng looked through the contract and made sure it was okay. He put it aside. Looking at the night view outside the car window, his cell phone rang in his pocket. Picked up the phone and said, "Hello, who is this?" "Mr. Lu, it's me, Ma Wanjun. How is the situation over there now? Has it eased? Lu Feng asked. It's much better. They seem to have reached some kind of agreement. The harassment at the mine is gone. Lawyers have recently been organized to litigate the ownership issue, but they asked us to produce as soon as possible. Ma Wanjun asked Lu Feng what he meant. The losses caused by the suspension of production in the past few months are not small. Workers' wages are advanced by the headquarters. Jiafeng cannot bear to not start work for a long time, not to mention that the tungsten ore futures incident has passed. Since others ask for resumption of work, then resume work as soon as possible. You should be more obedient on other people's territory and make everything easy to talk and discuss. Then resume production and the price will follow the market price. We must hold the pricing power in our hands and tell you something. If those processing companies or other companies are interested in buying the mine, we can talk about it. The price will be at least less than the one we bought, must be 2 stories high, Lu Feng ordered. Lu Feng knew that the country did not have strong control over Africa. If Britain had not come forward this time, his words there would be like farting. Under such circumstances, putting heavy assets there is like putting gold in someone else's house. The usefulness of tungsten mine has been demonstrated. As long as someone takes over, it can be sold. After hanging up the phone, the car had arrived at the door of the villa where Feng Xiao lived. How did the matter over there get resolved? Su Yorong asked. Schroeder people came forward to solve the problem. Only when we reach the international level can we understand what national strength represents. There are many future application scenarios for tungsten mines. Unfortunately, they are thousands of miles away and we cannot control them. It is better to take action earlier, otherwise it's his crime to have a jade in his arms, Lu Feng said helplessly. I still think it's better for you to settle down now and stay in Xiangjiang peacefully and not get involved in other things, Su Yorong advised. Lu Feng didn't say anything, just took out a cigarette and lit it. He really didn't want to get involved. With the production of communication chips, the mobile phone industry has been able to take root in the country. In addition, in this world, it is really difficult to go international. What are you fussing over? According to Lu Feng's guess, he would take a few years rest and wait until China joins the WTO before seeking external cooperation opportunities. Feng Xiao walked out and got in the car, looked at Lu Feng and said, Brother Feng, I always feel that this matter cannot be solved by just talking. I am also upset living here. I want to get my old house back tonight. We'll discuss the situation later, Lu Feng told the driver to drive. To put it bluntly, today's trip is just a contact. Lu Feng doesn't expect Feng Zhishan to let go of everything in just one conversation. Now he just wants to know how strong the support is behind him. Is there many people at this banquet today? Lu Feng asked Su Yorong. It's not too many. It's probably only a few dozen people. It was organized by the son of the owner of a freight company. If Feng Zhishan hadn't met Feng Xiao here, I'm afraid not many big shots would have given him face. At least I definitely wouldn't have come, Su Yorong said proudly. A car stopped at the entrance of a suburban manor. The receptionist at the door looked at the invitation and drove the guide car inside. It was the height of summer, and the buzzing of insects around him kept invading his ears, which seemed the same as the noise in the distance. Annoying. The car stopped at the reception door. As Su Yorong got out of the car, the few people receiving them at the door suddenly became excited and walked up to them to make friends. Su Yorong responded to them familiarly. Please come inside, if you guys can come, this place will really be full of glory. Su Yorong led Lu Feng and the two of them walked inside, as if they were in control of everything. After entering, Su Yorong said, let him prepare a lounge to sit in for a while. This kind of dinner is not interesting. Just eat, drink, sing, and have some fun with some third-rate models. It wasn't until around 8 o'clock in the evening that the three of them asked the kitchen to prepare some dishes. Feng Zhishan arrived belatedly. He was polite to everyone outside for a long time before walking towards the private room. Entering the private room, Feng Zhishan saw that Lu Feng and others were there, and the remaining food on the table had not yet been removed, so he said, "It seems that I am late, you have all finished eating." "It doesn't matter, you have a lot to do, just sit down." Lu Feng pointed to the sofa next to him and said, "I called you here today because of your family matters. I believe you know it in your heart. It seems that Mr. Lu is very dissatisfied with me." Feng Zhishan glanced at Feng Xiao and said, "You need to replace me and let Xiao come up." "That's not right. You make your own decisions about your family's affairs. No one can influence it," Su Yorong said from the side. "It would be great if Brother Feng can control it. He can get fairness with just one word. Why should I bother for so long?" Feng Xiao also spoke and said to Feng Zhishan, "You don't need to do this. I'm here to ask you something today, if you can give me back what belongs to me." Feng Zhishan smiled when he heard this, took out a cigarette from his pocket and lit one, looked at Lu Feng and Su Yorong, and asked, "What? You two want to stand up for him?" "I just wanted to see the excitement." Su Yorong leaned over and said casually. Lu Feng looked at him without saying a word. "Do you really think I'm a fool? If you don't get angry, just pretend I don't have a temper. You've already said it's my family's business and you still have to take care of it. Mr. Lu, your hand is long enough. If you want me to take care of it first, just yourself." Feng Zhishan blew out a puff of smoke, stared at Lu Feng and asked, "If I remember correctly, you have a wanted warrant on you. What do you mean by this?" "John is talking to you and wants to mess with me." Lu Feng didn't believe it. You? No way. Who do you think you are?" Feng Zhishan pointed his finger at Lu Feng and yelled, "You are just a dog of the Schroeder's group. You are gesticulating here. I might as well tell you that today I am arresting you for this fraud. A day of crime." As soon as these words came out, the expressions of Lu Feng and the three of them changed. Lu Feng even screamed in his heart. He didn't expect that they actually dared to take action. It seemed that they were planning to completely break up. Several police officers who followed Feng Zhishan opened the door and walked in. The leader was a man in his 30s. He looked at Lu Feng and said, "Mr. Lu, I hope you won't make it too difficult for us. At that time, you also lost your grace. Even if it's a summons, there must be a summons certificate, right?" Lu Feng asked. The police officer took a document from the person behind him, showed it in front of Lu Feng for a few seconds, then took it away and said, "Let's go." At this point, no amount of struggling would have any effect except making himself look disgraceful. Lu Feng stood up and straightened his clothes. "Mr. Lu, by the time you see the light of day again, I'm afraid that everything will have changed forever. Thinking about it makes people feel sad," Feng Zhishan said as he sat there. Feng Xiao was already a little panicked. If Lu Feng was caught, he would be doomed. Feng Xiao hurriedly looked at Su Yorong, hoping that she could use her connections to fish him out. Su Yorong didn't speak, just sat silently, as if nothing in this room had anything to do with her. Lu Feng was taken into the police car and drove away. Feng Zhishan couldn't help but smile when he saw Feng Xiao, stood up and said, "Do you really think that money can be alone in this world? Stop dreaming. Money has to rely on power to grow. Open the door and do it. Business must have a backer, and your backer is too weak. Mr. Su, would you like to have tea with us when you have time? Let's go." After Feng Zhishan left, Feng Xiao looked at Su Yorong and asked, "Why didn't you speak just now?" "What's the use of my words?" Su Yorong spread his hands and said, "I don't know those police officers. How can I tell them that I'm just having fun with you and you let him go?" Feng Xiao sat there with a bitter look on his face. This time he was completely finished. The blessings he had enjoyed in the first half of his life were over, and he would suffer in the second half. "Stop crying and go back." Su Yorong stood up and walked out with her bag. First, he threw Feng Xiao back to the villa, then he sat in the car and made more than a dozen phone calls, contacting people everywhere. At 2 o'clock in the middle of the night, Su Yurong parked the car downstairs of the police station and walked upstairs. A man in his 40s was sitting in the office smoking a cigarette. He looked at Su Yurong and said, "Mr. Su, I'm very adventurous about this, you have to know that he is a wanted criminal in the UK. Don't do this. The price was already negotiated before you came here. Now that I've said this, I'll give you a red envelope." Su Yurong looked at the director opposite and said, "Next year the British guy will leave, but you will leave. No, if you help your own people, you can be considered a meritorious deed."